Hey, how's it going? My name's Jack from JWH Home Studios, or just JWH Studios, and today I'm going to show you how much a cinematic track can really change your film or short project or anything like that. I'm going to be showing an example of a cinematic track I made actually for a client who reached out to me wanting it for her character for her Twitch streams. So she tasked me with coming up with the hit part of a film where the hero is down, it's not looking great, and they make a great comeback to rise up and defeat the enemy. Let's take Avengers Endgame, for instance, Iron Man, Captain America, whatever. They get knocked down by Thanos or the cronies, and they rise back up and defeat Thanos. So this is kind of the same principle of how to create that sort of track. So we titled this, me and my client, this was over coming up to 3 years ago now. This is one of my proudest projects to date that I have made, and this is kind of what has kind of really kickstarted my career in composing, songwriting, music production, mixing, mastering, Foley, everything like that. I mean, I've got over 15 years worth of experience in all of those. This track is called Rise from the Ashes. As you can see, or as you can probably tell, the hero's fallen, coming back from the ashes like a phoenix. So the full project is, or MP3 should I say, is available on my website. The link is in the description just down there, and it's also available on my SoundCloud as well. I have permission from my client who's no longer using the track, as it's been nearly 3 years, so I'm using this for my own portfolio now and how to kind of show you what to do. Just before I start as well, make sure to press the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, comment down below if you really want to do one of these sort of projects. And I will also just quickly say, I originally made this whole project on my MacBook Air. Unfortunately, that is now null and void because that was coming to 8 years. Apple said no, so I currently have a full PC rig. But unfortunately, I am missing some of the plugins, but you will get the general gist of it. The automation is still there. Some of the samples I used are missing as well because they're non-transferable. But we'll hop straight in and explain what's going on. I'll play a little bit first, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so to start off, this is a 4/4 track. I don't mess with 3/4 or 6/4 or anything like that. I usually solely like to work in 4/4. This is in 86 BPM, as you can see up here. And the song is roughly probably about 3.5 minutes, 4 minutes, because that's what the client paid for. What I usually like to do with these projects is I like to kind of obviously get what the client wants and have the project in mind. In this case, I had the character model, different poses from the character model to kind of work from, and a kind of overview of what she wanted, describing the character, sort of how the character came to be, a full synopsis really. So when you're working with a client, you really want to make sure you know every single little bit of detail, because you don't want to be starting on a project, send it to them, and they be like, no, like my project's kind of this, and then you turn around and say, well, no, you didn't actually tell me that. It's not really a good way to start off a contract with a client or an order or a project or anything like that, no matter where you're working from, Fiverr, or you found them elsewhere. So once you do have everything you need from them, I like to sit down and look at other sort of projects that are very similar in what they are wanting, and once I have a basis of that, I will sketch out a quick 4, 8, 16 bar of some chords. So in this case, I want to start very orchestral. As you can see here, I've drawn all this in MIDI. I didn't write it to audio from what I recall. There's quite a lot of tracks on here as well. I did print all my drums into one drum track once I was happy with all the levels. I've kept all of it MIDI because this is just how I did the project 3 years ago, and I didn't really see myself coming back to it. I didn't really see myself coming to do YouTube. So I have the BBC Symphony Orchestra plugin, Bitfire Audio plugin. The BBC Symphony Orchestra is still available on their website as well. I really like the Hans Zimmer one, but I don't really fancy paying that money for it. And the BBC Symphony Orchestra is really, really great plugin for doing cinematic, composing, anything like that, especially if you don't have Audition or any of the DAWs or software that will basically is made for composing. Composing isn't primarily done on Pro Tools from what I was taught at university, however, can be done. The BBC Symphony Orchestra in here is really great plugin. You have the horns at the back, and your harps, percussion, tuned percussion, and you have your wind, so you've got your trumpets, tenor trombones, bass trombones, tuba, basses, bassoons, clarinets, oboes, flutes, piccolos, violins, more violins, violas, celli, and you have your piano up here, and then you can do your long spiccato, pizzicato, and tremolos, and then you can adjust the tension in here, along with some other stuff which I never really mess about with, and also you can tune and pan and do whatever you want. So I ended up bringing up a cello, a double bass, a trombone bass, doing fourths, another trombone doing tenor, a double bass stab, so I like to have the stabs in there, double bass stab double, because I always like to layer it up. I put the melody with viola lead to really double it up, a viola plucks, violins, clarinets, flutes, percussion as well. That was all done obviously with the BBC Symphony Orchestra plugin. I have the guitars in here, which I did in MIDI. Didn't really fancy recording it myself, because back then I didn't really have a great plugin for reamping my guitars. Drums, again, that's all MIDI drum room. So what I did with the drums is I printed it all out, mapped all the drums out, and then I went in, it's not the traditional route people like to do, which is replace the MIDI with their own samples. However, I like to go in and place each individual sample by myself and then adjust the velocities. So I have a drum pack from JWH Studios in York that is run by Sam and Joe Graves. If you're into your metal, you may recognise those names. They are the boys from With One Last Breath. Their studio has worked with likes of Ask Alexandria, Family Ruin, and a couple of York bands. From the top of my head, I can't really remember. So I printed all them, did all the samples, routed it to one track and printed it. And then I reprinted it for the reverb only, because if you are not recording live drums, the one key thing is when you're recording drums is that you want your drum room mic. So what I did is I routed the drums to another bus and I printed the reverb and the reverb only. So I have the drum room here and then put a compressor on it and EQ. And I did have some studio verb on there, but I don't have studio verb on this PC. And then I had my percussion rolls for a bit more timbre effects. So my effects were my rises, my falls, my booms, my crashes. And again, I had a pan guitar in here as well. Again, with a compressor. Again, I will get through to the plugins after. And a pattern synth. And then, yeah, just had the guitar and any clean guitar chords and more synths and more MIDI brass. I do have some automation in here somewhere. The automation for the volume, for the effects, for the rise and falls if you want a bit quicker. Master volume as well, and I did have a plugin on the master just so I don't hit that ceiling up there. So I'm going to play a little bit now. I've got my markers up here because having markers while working in a project to really kind of navigate of what you're doing and where you want to edit. If a client comes back to you and asks, I want to edit like here, like that intro. Like if they're not musically minded, to say I want this changing in the intro, but a bit after that intro. So a bit you know what I mean? If you've talked to anyone who has come to you for a project and they're not musically minded, then it's going to be quite hard to kind of communicate about it. So yeah, I'm going to shut my mouth. I'm going to let this play and we'll come back and we'll discuss it a little bit. So that was full intro with everything coming in, and then as you're coming out of here, out of the intro, and coming up to technically the verse, because this is a complete instrumental composition. As you're coming into the verse, as you heard right at the end, it kind of dies down and then brings it back up. The rise, the fall and then the rise of the hero. So, yeah, so the basic chords in here for the cello. So we'll play at the beginning. So we've got your basic low E, D, E, but then we've got some additional B's up here from your and no, I will say I don't know music theory. The key is, don't worry about how it looks. Don't worry about theory. If it sounds good, it sounds good. That's all I've really got to say about that. And then so doom, 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 and then repeats on that. So yeah, it just repeats. So if I add in the viola melody as well. So you've got your main chords in there, and then you have your melody underneath. So we'll bring in the double bass as well. It really gives more depth and beefiness to it. The trombone basses. I was watching a really interesting video with Hans Zimmer on how he composed the music for Batman, mainly the Dark Knight Rises. So you have these strings and trombones right at the back of the theatre. So you left and right. When I put this, I had a left and a right. This is just basic stereo, straight, forward, centre. So you had it basic left and right. So coming straight down, because you really want that bass to be really impacting in there. So that's kind of what I did with the trombones. Add it in with the cello. So we'll just take out put the violas back in. And then we'll add the double bass in and the trombones, because you'll really hear the difference in it. More bass. And then we'll add even more bass to it to give it the final oomph you really want. And there you go, that is the left and the right in there. One's doing a basic one note, and then the other's doing the chords. So if you really kind of want that spatialness, you kind of want to make sure that you have all the bases covered. You want your left, your right, you want your front, your centre, forward, left, forward, right. Imagine you're creating a football team. You kind of want every basis covered. You kind of want that 8D audio. If you're sat in the middle of an amphitheatre, you want to feel it blow your socks off. So you want to make sure you have your bass in there, you have your highs, you have it all around you. You gotta make sure you layer. If you really want a full cinematic feel, you want to layer it. You want to beef it up. So that's basically the intro part 2. We'll skip over here to the strings. So we've still got everything going off. That more impact and feel. I do have the timpanis, the big drums. I'm a drummer, I should know this. The big, with the playing with the mats, I think they're called timpanis, and I really had the kind of percussion hits in there, just doom, because you just dun, 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 dun. I'd probably make a right fool of myself. However, I really need to get the point across. You really need that beefiness and them hits straight in. And then it comes down after it. You leave your knees in. Simmer it down. Make sure to use some automation. Maybe roll off a high end. And then let's bring the whole orchestra back in. We'll be leaving everything. We'll leave in the plucks, the violins, the clarinets, the flutes. And we'll take the percussion out. No, we'll leave the percussion in. And the whole point of being here is you need to layer and layer and layer and layer it up. Forget about the effects until after. Bring it in with the percussion. There you go. They're the timpanis I was on about. And then the stabs. Simmer it down with a lead. Doing an arpeggio in the background. It's very, very quiet, but it's there. If you have listened to the Amazing Spider-Man 2 soundtrack, that's kind of what's in there in the end credits. You have these little arpeggios going on and on and on and on. It's very subtle, it's very in the background, but it works wonders. Even if you just hide these small little details in the final mix, you will notice it, and your client will notice it as well. And then you rise it back up to get to that really big point. Yes, it's very early on in the track, but you want to get there. It's getting there, and there, and there. Just before the big finish, and a massive hit. Build it back up again. So you kind of get the gist of it. Let's move on to when the violin comes back in. And it's just that over and over again. So we'll listen to the violins on their own. That's just on the left. Panned it to the left, and panned it to the left only. And bring the clarinet as well. So again, arpeggiated. And the flutes. For some reason, they're not working. And then your percussion. And that's your kind of stabs, but with the kind of just main percussion. And then let's go back to the flutes are working over here, I believe. There you go. You see how it all builds up. So we'll just go from verse part 2, going up to pre-chorus. The reason why I said there's just a big build up and a big bang is because the effects aren't there, the guitars aren't there, the drums aren't there. All my rises and the falls. So go from verse part 2 before the pre-chorus, and I'll bring in each thing and show you how it builds up. With the double basses, this is why I have it doubled up, because it's da-da, 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 da-da. Your eyes and your ears don't know where to go, and that's what makes it great. So that was everything in the kind of build up. So that's kind of just everything in the orchestral kind of side of it. Then you want to start building up, so let's bring the guitars in, and the guitars on their own. Just follow the chords, the melodies. That's literally it. So that'll just basically one notes, just 16ths. That's literally all it is. Yes, it's a MIDI one because I couldn't be bothered at the time to record because I didn't have the right plugins. My guitar would have sounded awful. However, because I printed it from the MIDI, that's just standard with some distortion. When it gets to the chorus, I had some harmonics put in there. As you can probably hear it in the background, again, it was very, very subtle low in the mix. However, these little things make a big difference. That's all it is. Don't bring in the harmonics of feedback until you really kind of want to make that massive impact. Drums. Let's go over to the drums and I'll add in the drum room. So go to chorus. So your simple 8-bar drums, throw in an accent with a China cymbal, throw in a splash, an open hi-hat. Don't overcomplicate it. Yes, again, they were all samples. Again, they were metal drums to really make an impact. It's not going to be any good if you're using jazz and a cinematic sort of composition, or using pop drums, electronic drums. It doesn't work. So make sure your drums do make a big impact, but they don't override the song. So the drum room as well, it was printed reverb. So this sounds exactly like a mic was placed so far away from the drums, but still very sampled. I don't have the reverb plug on. There you go, that'll do. And then bring in the normal drums. Again, that was with a little fill. So bring in, because again it's a different reverb plugin, it's not how I originally mixed it. If I'll just bring up the reverb in here, and then you'll be able to tell. So you can hear the tail of the reverb just in there. So basically that is it for the drums. And then you have my percussion rolls in here as well. Again, yep, timpanis, exactly what you were called. Just little things that make a difference. We'll put some sound effects in there to show what I was on about. And then just the sound effects on their own. can find these rises and falls. So what I did to create that one is I took a riser, duplicated it, and then reversed it, and then matched them up so it lined up very perfectly, so you can't tell there's a little cut at the end. So let's put the drums in drums room, guitars, and the percussion, and you might be able to tell what I'm on about. And then that's your big build up in there. And that's kind of really all there is to it. Let's have a listen to the whole thing building up to that massive chorus, and then I'll skip to the outro. And so I'll go from the pre-chorus, because this isn't mixed properly, because I'm missing stuff. Let's turn the drums down just ever so slightly, because that hi-hat is very overpowering, and there's not really much I can do about it because I printed them. Let me see if I can show you these that I have muted. Yeah, here you go. So these are actually my drums. It is very, very, very messy. My drums are always very messy because I don't, like I said, I go by each individual one, ride, sample, lay in my fills individually, because that's how I've always done drums, because I come from a metal production background. Go from that pre-chorus again. Again, I had the rise and fall and the rolls to go into the outro to kind of lead out of the track. And that is thin. So what I usually like to do, and I've done it with metal productions before, I've done it with every other song I've written or composition, I like to slowly, gradually bring everything out and bring it down to the bare core, usually the stabs, because the stabs with the orchestra is usually the most impacting, because the composition usually starts at the front, brings it right back to off the back of the amphitheatre, so the people at the back can really feel it, chuck it all back, and then boom, the whole thing in the chorus just kind of makes a massive statement, and then just as it finishes, bring it back and close it up, so it's kind of fading to black, if that makes sense. This whole video I've kind of been rambling of how to kind of make this cinematic production. The whole kind of point in this video isn't how to write chords for a cinematic production. This isn't how to write a soundtrack for the new Batman film. This isn't how to get a deal with Sony or get a deal with Marvel or anyone else. This isn't it. This video is purely to demonstrate what you can do with some simple plugins and how to start basically. Get the bare bones chords and a melody. Write whatever you want. This was me playing around on the MIDI keyboard, getting those simple chords in, and then coming up with a melody, and then coming up with a counter melody, and then thinking what makes a good track. Do your research. Have those, like I kept mentioning, the timpani rolls, the percussion stabs, the orchestral stabs, especially with violins. Get your boys at the back, the big double basses, your trombones, your cellos, everything. Just get them all going. Layer everything up. I can't stress that enough. You need to layer up to make it a big impact. Don't overload your project, and don't hit the ceiling in your wall. I do recommend putting a like I do like to use like Maxim, not a compressor as such. My top tip is to bring the ceiling down to 0.1 decibels, so you're not ever going to hit that ceiling. And the meters, well, use your ears, don't use your eyes. Okay, never ever ever use your eyes, because if you're gonna get stressed about how things look, how a project looks, maybe that should be there, that should be there. Use your ears. If it sounds good, it sounds good. But this isn't, again, how to write a cinematic track for a film or anything like that. This is how to create your own. But yeah, that probably sums up this rambling video, my very first kind of tutorial, as it were. Not even tutorial. Please make sure to go and check out my website. I am available for work ASAP, composure work, do compositions for film, TV, short audio projects, basically anything you want, just let me know. Go to my website, my contact details are on there, email is on there. Feel free to message me, feel free to comment on here as well. Make sure you do subscribe and like it and comment the video as well. I will be starting a series on composition, Foley as well. That will be my next upcoming video on how to do Foley, how to rescore, how to rewrite music for horror. I'll be having a whole bunch of series on the channel as well, so make sure you press the subscribe button and press the little notification bell to get notified when I have a new upload. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. It is much appreciated for my kind of first proper video, as it were. I hope you all have a good stay safe.